Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Medicine Summit. I'm Dr. Christine Schaffner, and today my guest is Dr. Karen Can, and we're going to be talking about auto healing, how to heal faster than the speed of light. A little bit about Dr. Karen Can. She is a doctor of light medicine, a #1 international best-selling author, visionary, and pioneer in the fields of healing, consciousness, and spirituality. Her mission is to empower spiritually conscious people to harness their intuitive healing and manifesting superpowers so that they can reach their highest vibration and help anchor in a brand new reality of love, joy, peace, and harmony for all. Welcome, Dr. Can. It's really an honor to have you on the summit.
Hi, Dr. Christine. It's so great to see you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I just love, I obviously know you from previous interviews, and I just love reading your bio and your mission. And it's just such an important topic to have people feel really empowered these days, right? To connect to this, what you call auto healing. And so maybe before we go through our conversation, I'd love for people to just understand a little bit about your journey and how you became really passionate about sharing this ability that we all have.
Thank you. Well, I am a doctor, conventionally trained, and I absolutely love medicine because I love the science. I love, helping people. What I didn't understand in Western medicine was that helping people in Western medicine doesn't necessarily equate to healing. It's like our bodies do the healing, and how do we support the body to do healing? And then because I went through this dark night of the soul, where in my 30s, I kind of went spiraling down into fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, multiple different kinds of autoimmune issues, allergies, intolerances, gluten sensitivity, EMS sensitivity, multiple chemical sensitivities. I was a mess. And here I am as a medical doctor thinking, wait a second, nothing in my toolbox in Western medicine is going to heal me or get me better. I better look for something else. But I had to go down that road. And I'm sure you understand, you've seen it over and over again, where some healers go into a really, really dark place in order to come out the other side, in order to teach and, spread the good news of what can happen when we tap in, tune into spirit. And that's what happened to me. I began researching, like, how do I heal, not just physically with like nutrition and supplements. I was pretty new to supplements back then. It's not something that we were trained in Western medicine. Then I learned a little bit about energy medicine and Reiki and healing touch. And I was fascinated, to develop psychic powers, if you will. And I thought, this is so interesting. And I think that's the reason why my healing of those types of serious illnesses and symptoms took only about 2 years, where most people end up literally disabled or partially disabled for the rest of their life. So I was really excited to share what I learned with other people, and I actually wrote my first best-selling book, Guide to Healing Chronic Pain, A Holistic Approach. It's quite a tome. It's like 416 pages.
Wow.
Body, mind, spirit. In terms of pain, because that was one of the things I had, was a lot of physical pain. And after that, I realized that a lot of other people were very similar to me. And one of the reasons I had so much pain in the past and so many different illnesses was I was really sensitive. I was sensitive to other people's energy, very empathic, and I was taking on the weight of the world, literally taking on the energetic weight of the world. And that's why my body broke down. It was just sensing too much, having to deal with so much energy. And then I realized a lot of the patients, clients that were attracted to me were very similar, very, very highly sensitive. We're getting into overwhelm, we're getting into autoimmunity. So then I realized, wait a second, I need to learn more. So I ended up training in and certifying in the body code and the emotion code, and kept going deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. Ended up developing my own healing modality called the topocan healing method. And we're able now to tap into our superpowers to get some information that people need to heal on a subtle level, energetic level, spiritual level, dimensional level. And so that's what I'm passionate about right now.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know I see very similar patients, and I love that how you shared like your timeline for going through the illness was really quite accelerated, most likely because of all these other tools that you found through your journey. And a big passion of mine is to understand those tools and the methodologies like that you've created so people can really feel empowered during this time, because so many people have been sick for way too long, tried too many things, and it's just exhausting and expensive and all of that. And so, no, really am grateful that your path led you to all of this, and that also this idea of which we can talk about in a little bit, the sensitivity being your superpower. I see a lot of sensitive patients, and that's a really can be confusing if you don't see it through that lens. And so I love the reframe there. And so we have a lot to discuss. And obviously I wanted our audience to know like you're coming from not only like a highly trained medical doctor, but also through this experience that you had within your own body, and look at you now. So it's a really great story of hope too for anyone who's struggling. So Karen, tell me about this idea of auto healing, and you have really kind of this. You have a couple systems, but I want to talk about first the STOIM. Am I pronouncing that right? STOIM on steroids technique, and this is a way that we can access what we call the 0 point and hone in on your home frequencies. So for many people, they're like, "What did I just say? What's the 0 point? What's a home frequency? What is this technique?" So walk us through what this is and anything you'd like to share for the purposes of today.
I'd love to. Thank you, Dr. Christine. Actually, in my book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower, this technique, the foundational technique, STOIM, is so important, or at least I found it so important for myself, my clients, my patients, that I put it right at the beginning of the book, chapter 4. And a little backstory, because I think some people may understand and resonate with my story here as well. I am a super busy person. I love being busy. I love being productive. My mind is constantly thinking, going, creating more and more and more. That's just my personality. And for me, my first spiritual teacher told me very gently, says, well, it would really help you if you meditated every day, even for 10 minutes. And I thought, how hard could that be? Right? Being an achiever oriented person. So I started. And then after about 3 days, I stopped. I just couldn't make myself do it. I was bored. I was like, oh, my mind can't turn off. And then I'm trying, let's try this technique. I'd be like, oh, this is really great guided meditation. I'd do it once or twice and then I'd be bored. And I just couldn't get out of being bored. And I thought, okay, she said it's good for me. But part of my logical brain, that left brain that got really developed with Western medicine, was like, tell me why. Prove it to me. Why should I do this? Right. And back then, I wasn't aware anyway of a lot of data, scientific proof about the benefits of meditation. Had I been, maybe I would have tried harder. But I wasn't really that keen on doing it. So I pretty much told myself, oh, I really don't need it. Then I discovered a technique through a book called The Secrets of Instant Healing. Now, why did I read that very short book? Number one, because it was short. And number two, because it had the word instant in there. That intrigued me because I'm a medical doctor and I like results fast, fast, fast. Come on, let's go. I don't want to wait 5 years of meditating. And they say, monks meditate for 20 years before they get their brainwave states at this perfected level. And I'm like,
Yeah.
do that. Sorry. So I was trying to force myself into this box and it didn't really work for me. And when I read Frank Kinslow's book, The Secret of Instant Healing, and did his technique which is very tactile, it really got me into a space. And I thought, I'm pretty peaceful. That's interesting. And it was so simple. I thought, well, this is all I need. And he made a point to kind of explain why you don't have to sit there for 60 minutes or 45 minutes or even 30 minutes to get the benefits of meditation. And he was very compelling. So I started doing this practice. And what's very interesting is my life started changing around me. it started becoming more synchronicity focused and lucky. And I ended up on a telesummit, became very popular suddenly. It was like one thing after another. But I didn't know it was from this. So what
Mm.
happened was after I got busy, guess what? I forgot about it
Mm.
and I stopped doing it. And then things started getting harder again. Now, this technique that he taught, you can do it for a few seconds at a time, a few minutes at a time, and that's why I really liked it. So then I started doing it again and started getting success again in all areas of my life and realized, aha, okay, I do need to commit to this and remember to do it. It actually did make a difference. Sometimes we need that contrast, right? Between not doing something and realizing, oh, that really helped. So one of my students and clients said to me, because I was suggesting, he read the book and do the process. He goes, I don't get it. I
Mm.
said, well, you don't resonate with what Dr. Frank's talking about? He goes, no, 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 no. I don't get it. I don't understand how to do it. I thought it was really easy, with the book. So I thought, how am I going to explain it to him? So I devised a new technique I called stillness through observing internal movement. And this is like another doorway into that place where we get to when we meditate. People call it the stillness, people call it the void, people call it 0 point, except that even though it's the same place, it's just a different doorway. So for this client, I taught him this method. The reason I knew this method was because when Dr. Frank was talking about how to do his method, I could feel in my body where I was in my body. So then I just had this client tune into their body and feel the movement. We'll go through step by step how to do this in a short while. And he was like, oh, I get it. That's it. That's it. I just feel movement in my body. I said, yeah. He goes, that's it. I don't have to do it for 20 minutes at a time. Nope. So I can do this just for like 3 seconds at a time. Yep. He's like, this is easy, right? So he started doing this just a little bit here, a little bit there. And his life started to change like crazy. He became very prosperous, and now he's famous, and it was amazing. And his muscle testing is awesome. So he's helping clients that way. So really exciting stuff. And so that's what I've been teaching throughout. And today, for the first time, we're actually going to expand that technique to other senses, if you will, because not everyone is as gifted in feeling the body as they are gifted in other areas. So we can talk a little bit about that before we get into the how to.
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's just dive in there.
Okay. Now, I have noticed that, especially for highly sensitive people, that about 80% of them are primarily clairsentient. What that means is that their highest or most powerful intuitive sense is feeling. So these people tend to feel other people's emotions, unfortunately, oftentimes the negative emotions, and sometimes they can feel other people's illnesses or other people's imbalances in their own body. So they might get a knee pain and think it's their stuff, but it might be somebody else's stuff, and they're feeling it as a pain in their knee. So for these people, the original stillness through observing internal movement technique is really helpful because we use that talent and we turn it inwards, and they can use that talent to get into that place of the 0 point field by feeling the energy in their body. So that's about 80% of highly sensitive people. And by the way, that is about the latest research from Elaine Aron in 2018. Their stats went from 20% of the average population to 30% are highly sensitive. So that's a third of us. Like, this is not a small number of people here around the world that are sensitive like us. So for that 20% that were not as, let's say, talented or gifted in clairsentience feeling, they're probably talented in other areas like hearing or listening, so that'd be clairaudience, or seeing either out here or in their mind's eye, that's clairvoyance. Clairgustance or gustiance is taste. Clairessence is smell. Clairknowing is just, and everyone wants this one on lock because it's just like, you just know the answer. You don't muscle test, you don't do anything, you just know what the answer is. So some of the times when we have taught this clairsentient based STOIM technique, there are usually one or maximum two people in a crowd of hundreds that like, I don't feel anything. So today, for the first time, I'm actually publicly going to be sharing the STOIM on steroids, which is how to do that by doing and engaging your other senses. So for those that may not be clairsentient based, like so many of us, it may be easier for them to get into that place of stillness and the void. And why do we want to even get there? What I've noticed is that, well, let me back up just a little bit. When I do sessions with people one-on-one, I do muscle testing for them. I call it divine muscle testing. So I get into that space of stillness. I resonate the highest frequency I can in that moment. I feel the energy in my body. My muscle testing is much more accurate that way. We source all the answers to the questions we want. And oftentimes we would have quite a catalog of things to check. So for example, even today, I had someone where we were checking all the different organ systems of the detoxification system. So we were checking, respiratory, we were checking large intestine, we were checking lymphatics, we were checking skin, we were checking, kidneys, ureters. So we would get a percentage out of 100% how happy and balanced each of those areas are with muscle testing. So we do a lot of testing in my one-on-ones, very, very, very specific. And for the most part, we're allowed to know all these answers. So what happened, or what started to happen, was when I started cataloging things, knowing full well that they were not healthy or happy in these areas. As I started cataloging, as we were both in that state of stillness together, their numbers kept going higher and higher and higher as we kept cataloging. I thought, that's interesting. What's going on? I'm like, how by chance could that be that they started at 30%, and as we're testing each organ, they should be random, right? Like maybe one's at 40 and then one's at 60 and then one's at 20, and but it just kept consistently getting better. And I thought, let me test something else. So what I did was I kind of tested back in time, which is really cool. You can do this stuff. So you can say, for example, say I saw the patient at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I started testing at 3 p.m. I can say to the universe, give me how happy the liver was at 3 p.m. Now, I may have documented the liver was 75% happy at 3:45 p.m. But at 3 p.m., the answer was 30% happy. And I was like, okay, so how did the liver get from 30% happy to 45, whatever it was, 70% happy? Because we didn't actually do healing yet. We were just cataloging. And of course, actually 3:45 is not a good example because that's like 45 minutes. It's more like 5 minutes. So between 3 and 3:05, there can be a shift already. Things already start to heal. So that's where I started telling my patients, it looks like you auto-healed, or you're starting to auto-heal the liver just because we asked about the liver, just because we have the intention in the state of stillness, in the 0-point field, of paying attention to your detox system. So all the different organs and glands started getting better and better and better as time went on and we were testing. So we figured out what it was at a certain time and then compared where it is now, and people were automatically healing. And that was really, really exciting. So when I'm in that space of that auto healing, we get my clients in that space of auto healing, then everything we pay attention to starts to heal itself. And that's really exciting because, hey, wouldn't we all want to be empowered, right? Like you were saying, empowerment is so important these days. You don't have to do as much as you think you have to do to heal. Sometimes it's just about being, having that energy and noticing the energy in your body, and it just starts to heal itself. It's so cool.
Wow, that's incredible. And, I love how you have that real-time feedback with your clients and patients as well, right? To share, how you can see their lives transform and unfold when you're doing these practices. And so do you feel like you're at a good place, Dr. Can, to share this with us? Or do you want to say anything else before we have an experience?
I think this is the perfect time.
Yeah,
so
great.
What I'm going to be doing is walking through the different steps to the original STOIM technique. And then afterwards, we'll pause a little bit. And if you're willing to do it with us, Dr. Christine, you can give us some feedback on what it feels like for you. And then we can go into the STOIM on steroids, where we are actually expanding that to our other senses. And then there may be one that you are more dominant than others. Some will feel easier to do, and that's okay. So we're just giving people an experience of all the different ones, and then they can go home and just kind of practice that. One of
Nice.
the greatest things about this technique, especially because, the auto healing, if you don't need to do anything, take pills, pay money, and it's
Yeah.
free, hey,
Yep.
why not? That's what I like to say, right? Why not? It's free.
Yeah. Try it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Well, the way things are, and I get it, because sometimes when we don't pay for things, sometimes we just don't take it seriously. We think, it's free, so I'll do it later, right? But in my experience with this particular technique, now, if somebody loves to meditate and they get into that space already and they want to do 30 minutes, 60 minutes, I'm not going to say don't do it for that long. It's just that you don't have to do it for that long,
Mm.
even a few minutes at a time, a few seconds at a time. I'm actually even practicing going into this stillness space while watching a scary movie or an exciting new movie, because normally I'd be like, like watching the movie
Yeah.
and literally being in the movie, but not being in my body. So I started practicing being in my body and feeling the energy in my body through STOIM while watching the scary movie. And the funny thing is, it's very curious, uh, just witnessing the different reactions, the different parts of my body that are like, and others that are quiet. The downside, of course, is if I am watching a scary movie, it's not so scary anymore.
Mm.
Being fully embodied, I'm like, oh man, this is fun.
I don't like scary movies, so this would be a good technique for me.
Yeah. Well, a lot of sensitives don't like scary movies. I'm kind of the weirdo of the bunch, where
Yeah.
I actually really like them growing up. And I think part of it is because I have an affinity for helping and healing ghosts and other entities and things like that. And I see them just as lost children. I don't see them as something evil, bad to be punished or bound or anything like that. So I think part of my curiosity in the horror space growing up is that acceptance, of the dark side, and giving love to them as well. But it's not for everyone. Definitely not. Oh, there was one other story, actually, Dr. Christine, that I did want to share, and then we'll go
Please.
right into the
Yeah, perfect.
technique. One of the things that I didn't understand when I was healing myself and my teacher was telling me to meditate was I was reading these books from Eckhart Tolle and all these other great teachers, and they were saying, be present, be present. I'm like, okay, how do I be present? Okay, I'm washing the dishes and I'm feeling the warmth on my hands. Well, that lasted all of 5 minutes, right? I was then bored, right? And I just didn't understand, be present. How do I be present? I saw John Kabat-Zinn at the Omega Institute, where I, and now was faculty for at, and the people were walking like zombies on the grass. My husband's like, what are they doing? Are they zombies? And I'm like, no, they're not zombies. I said, they're doing mindfulness meditation. He's like, what? And I was like, yeah, they're mindfully, stepping slowly on the grass. And so there's all these people with like no shoes on, and they're like hundreds of them, stepping slowly. And they really do kind of look like zombies. And somehow I didn't want to pay hundreds of dollars to do that. Anyway, so one day I did watch a scary movie. It's the original movie called The Ring. It's very scary. Don't watch it. Wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
But it left on a cliffhanger, right? A scary, scary cliffhanger. And it was one of the first times where they were using this video technique where they kind of would stop, start, stop, start. So it looked really, really scary. They did a great job making it scary. So I went to bed completely scared out of my mind. And I thought, okay, I kept seeing the scenes over and over in my head. So I thought, okay, I got to meditate. So I'm there doing breathing. I'm trying to Kundalini yoga. I'm trying progressive, like tightening and relaxation. Like I tried everything, Dr. Christine, and I was still scared out of my mind.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Scary monster, right? And I couldn't sleep well for 3 days. I mean, I hardly got any night's sleep the first night because I was wide awake trying to relax, trying to meditate. So eventually was so exhausted, I did finally fall asleep and forgot about the scene and the whole bit. So a couple of years go by, and my friend is moving, and I see she's got a bunch of movies in a box, and I pull one out. It's The Ring 2. And I'm like, there's a sequel? And she goes, yeah, it's really scary. And I'm looking at this, and my husband's like, you're not going to take that, are you? Because you did not sleep the first time. I'm like, I want to know what happens. Well, I borrow it from her, and my husband's thinking, oh God, Yeah. And I sit on it for a while. I sit on it. So finally, I say, okay, I'm going to watch it. And he goes, okay. So I watch it. It does resolve, but I'm scared out of my mind again. And I go to bed, and I'm thinking, well, last time I meditated, I I did Kundalini yoga, progressive relaxation, nothing worked, right? And I'm like, I'm not even going to try. So I'm laying in bed, wide awake, scared again. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to be scared. I'm just going to freaking be scared. So then I just lay there, and I just thought, well, I wonder what my body feels like scared. So I tuned in to my body, and it seemed like all of a sudden, this is what I felt. And I was like shaking. My whole body was shaking. My heart was going, and I was like, wow. And all this down my arms, my legs. And I was like, wait a second, I didn't even notice that a moment ago, right? And I was so into being scared. And part of my witness mind was like, well, that's interesting. Wow. Whoa, look at all this energy. Wow. I thought I was shaking the bed. I really thought I was shaking the bed. It was that bad.
Wow.
And you know what happened? I fell asleep.
Yeah.
After about 10 minutes, I fell asleep, woke up, refreshed the next day, and I went, oh, that's what my teachers are talking about, being present. Because I thought being present was like being calm or trying to be calm or, no, being present was being present with whatever is going on. And for me, it was tuning into my body and feeling the energy in my body. And then it was like, aha, all these ding, 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 ding. So that's what I want to share with our audience today, is that you do not have to be calm or happy or balanced when you do STOIM. In fact, it's even better when you're in a bad mood. You're scared because you're really honoring whatever space your body's in and paying attention to what your body is doing. When you turn that attention inwards, we give the mind so much to do because it's paying attention, right? That it actually doesn't have time to think about all the other things you were thinking about and worrying about or being upset about. So when I'm upset at someone, or I'm upset at if I happen to catch the news or something like that, and it starts bothering me, the best thing for me to do is turn my attention inwards, feel what it feels like in my body. And even if I'm annoyed, feeling whatever moving, after a few seconds or even a minute or so, that annoyance, that emotional annoyance just tends to kind of dissipate. I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm just paying attention to the body. So that is the benefit of this practice, is that it's in a millisecond you do it, in a minute you can do it. You don't have to sit there in lotus underneath the pyramid on the full moon naked, right? Do it. Okay.
Ready.
So I think we're ready for our STOIM here. So there are 3 steps of STOIM. It's focus, feel, and flow. That's the original stillness through observing internal movement. And that's when we use our clairsentient abilities to tune in. So the first thing I like people to do, if they're watching this and it's safe for you to do that, you can go ahead and rub your hands really, 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 really fast like this. Make some heat. What we're doing is increasing the energy flow in the body so we can feel it better, especially for those that aren't used to being embodied and feeling energy. And then if it's safe for you, go ahead and close your eyes and then focus on the inside of the body. So maybe focus on the hands. Go ahead and feel any movement that you feel in the body, any energy that you feel in the body. Some people may feel pulsing. They may feel their heart rate. They may feel tingly. They may feel waves. Whatever it is, it's okay. You don't have to label it. And As you focus on the inside of your body, go ahead and feel the movement and then follow the flow of it. That's step 3, wherever it goes. So maybe it goes both sides of the body. Maybe you feel more flow or movement on the upper half of your body, or maybe more in the lower half. Maybe there's an area of your body where you scan and go, whoa, I don't feel anything there. Huh. You don't have to judge it, just kind of visit there and go, is there energy there? Do I feel movement there? And just be curious. So, for example, as I do it now, I can feel a lot of pulsing in my hands and kind of going into my head and neck and chest, and not as much in the lower body. But as I tune in and just pay attention to the lower body, I start to feel some flow going down the legs as well. Now, typically for me, I don't feel as much movement in the belly area. That's kind of like my spot. Like I would have to focus a little bit longer to feel the energy there. And that's, again, it's okay wherever you feel it. You don't have to try to balance it. You don't have to judge it. And if you have a pain somewhere in the body, you can even focus there on the pain area and see if you notice whether there's movement there. So just go ahead and continue following the flow. And if you have that feeling that, okay, I feel it, I feel that flow. If you lose the flow, but you had it, you can go ahead and rub your hands again just to get it a little bit more so you can feel it. But as you go further into this, after moving, you'll notice that the movement sometimes can be more subtle. And that's good if you can still feel it. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can go ahead and gently open your eyes and see if you can continue feeling some movement in the body. So keep following the flow. Where do you feel it? So you're really tuning your inner vision or your inner feeling, even though you're looking out here, just paying attention to inside as well. So maybe Dr. Christine, you can give us some feedback of what that feels like in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, I felt a lot of heat in my hands after we rubbed them together and after I laid them down. And then I felt just like a lot of energy in this part of my head. And it wanted to move a little bit. I feel maybe if I wasn't on camera with you, it might have moved more. But I do feel like, yeah, just this. Kind of unwinding motion in my head. And I just kind of sat with that. And yeah, kind of as we went through it, I just started feeling a little bit of stillness too. It kind of like became more still, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And if you were to say what your emotions were doing at that time, how would you describe it while you were noticing this movement?
Yeah, I would say I was curious. I was also um, I've been going a lot, this week, and, I'm really enjoying doing these interviews and, but there's like this kind of a mental, just energy, right? Just,
Right.
that I've had to, just sustain, this week and today. So I felt like kind of a busied sense, I guess, if that makes sense.
Hmm. So did you notice being feeling the body, whether that busyness feeling shifted at all for you?
It did. I feel like once I kind of allowed myself to feel it, like it was starting like to become more like rhythmic and kind of I dropped down a little bit more, like I could feel more energy like coming down, if that makes sense.
Okay, wonderful. That sounds fantastic. So
Mhm.
people will have different experiences, and generally what we find is that if people were, upset or stressed or just kind of like distracted or frazzled, not that you were in any of those spaces, but what happens is when they pay attention to the body, their energy comes back from wherever it was into the body and bodies into the body. So, and even you were talking about, the it kind of falling down or coming into the body and deeper in there. And that is very, very common. Some people have spontaneous, if they have physical pain, they have spontaneous release of that pain just by paying attention.
Wow.
In fact, I was at the Omega Institute. We actually had about 5 people of the staff of Omega that had physical pain that day. And we just went over this particular technique. And by the end of about 5 or 6 minutes, I asked how many people still have pain, and nobody raised their hand.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was gone. So that's that auto healing technique. So
Mhm.
now I want to help people that may not feel as much. So they may not be feelers, they may not be clairsentients. So we're going to now talk to the people who are more visual. So we're doing the STOIM on steroids now. The STOIM original is really about the feel, the clairsentience, the feeling in the body. But everyone, even if you don't know what your dominant clair is, you can try them all and see which ones you like the best. And you can practice it whenever you want. Like you could be talking to your mother-in-law who you don't get along with as well and do STOIM. You know, she doesn't know you're doing it. And in fact, that happened one time. I was talking to my parents, and they thought they were really upsetting me because of something they were saying, that they were judging me for something. And in the past, I probably would have been upset, Christine, but I was just like being. So I thought, ooh, I'm going to try this out. So I'm just, feeling my body, and they're going, rah, 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 like, I think you'll be
Yeah.
upset. And I'm just feeling. And as they're talking, I could feel little, like little energies flying. But at the end of that, I was so peaceful. I was able to respond, not react, respond to whatever they were saying. And I really wasn't upset, but I might have been had I not been fully present and in that auto healing state.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for the visual people, what I'd like, and again, Dr. Christine, you can do it. Everyone who's listening,
Yeah.
watching now would love for you to do it as well if it's safe for you to do that. So we're going to have you just look ahead. So we're just going to have you look ahead and go ahead and initially focus on, kind of like the middle, have your vision focused on the middle. So for example, in my case, I'm looking at the camera. Okay, so you can focus on the middle, wherever you're looking, just kind of focus on the spot. So after you've kind of picked your spot that you focus on, now what I would like you to do is now change your attention to outside of that spot. So now you're going to focus on the peripheral. So you're just going to pay attention. And I know sometimes it's challenging, like, where do I look? Well, you're still looking straight forward, but you're paying attention to the peripheral. So keeping the eyes forward, but just paying attention because you have this huge peripheral vision. Now, some people are very natural at this, and I'm going to keep talking while everyone's practicing. My husband's one of them. He's very clairvoyant, and in the past, he's seen, spirits and things like that, and I don't see them on the outside world, but he can. He's one of these people that can watch a movie, same movie that I'm watching, and suddenly say, oh, did you see that mistake they did? I'm like, what mistake? And he'll catch it because he'll see it in his peripheral. He'll catch it in his peripheral, and some people have seen like ghostly shadows and stuff, and sometimes I don't notice it, but the clairvoyant people can. So for example, as I'm paying attention to the periphery, there is glowing. I have lights here, I feel glowing, everything's pretty still. But interestingly, when I was looking straight at the center, I really didn't notice the glow around the lights before, but now I do.
Mhm.
And if I really pay attention to the periphery, I actually even sense movement. It's very subtle. It's very, very subtle. And what happens to me is that I'm focusing, I won't say so hard, but I'm focusing so intently on this peripheral vision that my mind isn't thinking of anything because it's focusing on what I'm trying to do. So Dr. Christine, your feedback on this part.
This one was a little harder for me, but as you talk there, it's like this flickery kind of light on the kind of edges that I was seeing. But it was a little harder for me to keep focused with my eyes.
Yeah, it's a different muscle, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of went in and out of it, in and out of it. Of course, I'm talking too, so that can be distracting. The times that I have done this in the past, just inadvertently, where I'm kind of just staring into space, but not really looking at anything, I've actually been able to see auras around things much better than in regular vision.
Oh,
And
wow.
one time I was at my healer's place, and I'm just in this kind of space where I'm just looking out and not looking at anything particular, and I see this glow around the edges of the door, and I just kind of tilted my head. And she says, "What are you looking at?" I said, "That's strange. I'm really not looking at anything, but there's like this aura, it's purple around the door frame." And she goes, "Well, why is that strange?" I said, "Well, because it's not living." And she goes, "Are you sure?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, about that, right?" And so I thought, wow, I better be nice to my stuff.
Oh,
Yeah. I used to be, as an aside, I used to be very mean to my car because my car was just a thing. It was just to get me from A to B, and I would just complain about it. This was wrong with it. That was wrong. It was just a piece of equipment. I had no reverence at all for this thing because it wasn't alive. And I think that after working with my spiritual healer and realizing, wait a second, I can see auras around everything. I mean, not all the time, but in this space that we're, the stone for steroids thing we just did, it's becoming, more easy to do that. I decided I was going to be really kind to my car. And so for the past several years, I'm like thanking it for starting, in the very cold winter. If there's a light on, I'm like, oh, what's going on? What are you trying to tell me? And just almost having a conversation with my car, which if anyone else aside from my husband were to listen in, they thought this woman is nuts. She's talking to her car, folks. But now that I'm treating my car in this positive way, I have to say I'm in the shop, or the car's in the shop, much, 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 much less than what it used to be, which is fascinating.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I love these practices and this tangible, yeah, experience that we had. And I think, again, everyone who's listening, play around with it, right? Be curious. And I'm sure as you do this more, it unfolds more on what you feel and what you see. Is there any other parts of this process that you want to share before we expand outward?
Yeah. So for the visual, I think that again, you don't have to stay there for 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
look. Just for example, if you're again talking to someone, doesn't have to be your mother-in-law, if you're talking to anybody, you could just like, just look at them, but
Mm,
then start paying attention while you're listening, just around, just for a few seconds or a minute. Now
mm,
the next, so that's clairvoyance. So
uh,
that's the vision that we're using to get into stillness. And when I do it, I do have to focus a little bit more intently than I do when I do the clairsentient one, which is the original stillness through observing internal movement. And I noticed that my mind is even less busy because I need to focus more to pay attention to the periphery. Now, the next one I'd like to practice and teach people is clairaudience. Now, you can probably figure out what this is going to be like. So, what you want to do, and again, if it's safe for people to do that, to close their eyes, so you can close your eyes. And what I'd like you to do with your hearing is hear every sound you can hear in the room. I'm going to be quiet with my voice for a little while here, and just go ahead and pay attention to every other sound you hear. And you can open your eyes again and see if you can continue to hear the peripheral sounds around and outside the voice. So a little bit more challenging as I'm talking to see if you can pay attention to the other sounds other than my voice. And some people are so sensitive with their hearing that they don't realize that they get annoyed when they hear other things that they don't want to hear. But actually, it's a talent and a gift. And if you can turn that sensitivity as a superpower and realize, wow, I'm really good at hearing all the other things that I really don't want to hear, you can do it purposefully and consciously and actually get through another doorway to stillness.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Dr. Christine, what was your reaction to
You know,
this?
as I sat there and just listened, I just tuned into. I'm in my office, and so I'm just hearing, you know, more activity of what's going on around me, and I heard the outside, a plane maybe went by, so I was just more hearing and listening to my external environment.
Perfect. That's perfect. And how was your emotions at that time?
I felt pretty calm. Yeah, pretty calm. And yeah, I think I was just really um, maybe trying, like, I'm like, what do I hear? But I felt, yeah, pretty calm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fantastic. A lot of times that is kind of like the side effect, if you will, of paying attention and focusing the mind so intently on a particular goal, in this case, hearing everything at the same time, that the emotions just kind of neutralize itself. And people
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to feel joy, bliss, like this big high feeling all the time. If you did, you probably get exhausted or get bored.
Yeah.
So there is a natural ebb and flow to our emotions, but what we prefer not to happen is have these huge dips, right? These huge
Mhm.
dips into anger and frustration, irritability, and resentment. So when we practice STOIM or STOIM on steroids, is that we get a smaller dip into those areas. And even if we do a big dip, we come back up much faster, you know?
Mhm.
And by doing these techniques, and then we find that over time, we're more hovering around that neutrality. So
Mhm.
I can, for example, in the past, get really, really triggered by certain things in the news or people being hurt. I really had major issues with people being hurt, especially
Mhm.
children. And I would get triggered and I would get angry and upset and so on and so forth. And what I realize now is even if I do get triggered by something on the news or see something online or a friend tells me something bad happened to somebody, that was preventable, I may feel triggered in the moment. And if I remember to go into stillness, what happens is that trigger goes bloop, and then goes back to neutral. And when we're in that neutral space or even a happy space or blissful space, we attract different things, quote unquote, into our lives and we create more synchronicities and we get more of what we do want and less of what we don't want, including, of course, physical healing as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, love these. And hey, everyone has access to these senses. Do you want to walk us through another sense, or do you feel, we can, if I guess we have a few more senses, but people can also just, walk through them. Any other insight on how to do that, or practical tips around that before we move on to your other form of healing that we want to share?
Well, yeah, so it's very simple, and you probably, if you're listening in and watching it, already figured it out. And if we go to taste, if we go to smell, right? So if we go to taste, and a lot of times people can shut off some of the other senses so they don't get distracted. So again, if it's safe for you to do that, you can close your eyes and just notice a taste in your mouth. And sometimes people don't even notice anything at all in their mouth until they turn their attention and go, oh, we're stuck in my tooth here. It tastes like mint, you know? And so all you're doing is tasting using that sense. And then, so people can practice that and you can open your eyes. And then the next one, of course, is smell.
Mhm.
So you can go ahead if you want, you can close your eyes or keep it open if you'd like a little bit more challenge, is really smell through the nose, in and out through the nose, and pay attention to the smells. I can smell that I had Thai food today for dinner, you know? And people don't realize sometimes they're using these clairs all the time and they don't recognize that it's a gift or a talent I have in the past, even though clairessence, which is nose, and clairgustance is not my dominant, there have been times where I've been to a party, I bite into a dessert or something like that with a nut in it, realize the nut's rancid, and spit it out, and everyone else is eating it, and I'm like, gotta be kidding! I said, my
Yeah.
husband, it's rancid. I have been in a place where I've smelled something funky, and one time we were sitting at dinner table, and I was like, oh. I said to my husband, this was years ago, I said, you reek. And he goes, I do. And then I literally went to him, his underarm went, right? And I was like, it's not you. Huh. And at that point, I didn't have good boundaries when it came to healing spirits. So spirits were coming to the house in the middle of dinner going, hi, angels told me to come here, So it was actually, a ghost who was alcoholic bum, if you would say a bum type of, caricature. And so after we cleared this spirit, then the smell went away. So there's lots of different ways. And as you practice STOIM on steroids, you'll actually be helping your senses be more in tuned as a superpower, and noticing you'll see things, you'll actually hear things that you may not used to hear. It might be your own words, might be your own thoughts, but this is a wonderful way to both do two things. One, to get into stillness and auto healing, and number two, to actually start practicing and training those superpowers.
Mm-hmm. Love it. I love it. And no, I'm excited for people to experience this, and they'll have to reach out to Shift and you and share what they've been experiencing because of it. So I'm excited to hear that. So Dr. Can, you have one other form of methodology that I know we're going to need to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to be able to share that because you have so much to share with people with the work that you do. And you have an Academy of Light Medicine, and you share this methodology that you created called topocan, right? I pronounced it right, healing method. And so can you just give a little bit of a background and insight of what that is?
Sure, I'd love to. So the topocan healing method is a methodology I created out of necessity. I realized that some of the trainings that I had, and they're wonderful, absolutely. I was finding that some of my highly sensitive patients would have kind of weird or esoteric issues that weren't in any of the other modalities. So I started kind of figuring things out myself, and realizing that sometimes they needed something very, very specialized. So the topocan healing method wasn't even supposed to be a method. I was just using it as an offshoot of the body code, emotion code, and other modalities that I was using. But it kept coming up more and more and more, these other things. So finally, I'm on a drive with my husband somewhere, and I started having a little conversation with the angels. And I do this through divine muscle testing. And I was, asking yes, no questions. And it came out that I was supposed to create this modality. And I'm kind of resisting because I'm like, there's so many great modalities out there. Why do I have to create a modality? I'll just do this with my patients, my clients. And but the angels are very insistent that it was important. And I'm like, but why? And the answer was, number one, because not everyone resonates with everything. So some people will resonate with the work that I do more than other things and get results. And the other one, which really did convince me to let go of that resistance to creating a new healing modality, was that it was part of my soul expression. So just because there's another healing modality that's great out there, and maybe some people don't resonate with that, but would resonate with me, but part of my being here embodied in this planet was to express myself, express my soul. So it's like, oh, it's like facets of a diamond, like all these different versions of God, if you will. We are each a version of God, source, and fractalized into unique individuals to express ourselves. So that really convinced me. And so we've been getting some really interesting and great results with people. How it works is there's 3 steps. It's align, ask, and activate in the topocan healing method. Align is basically what we did today, the STOIM method, to aligning to the 0 point field. Ask is using a technique I call divine muscle testing to get yes, no answers. It's the quality of question, which gives us quality answers. And then in the topocan healing method, we actually have charts where we do muscle testing to try to figure out what is the problem. So we have these little charts. Whoops, there we go. These little charts in the topocan healing method. We get a yes, no, figure out what's going on with the person. Do they need something to release? Or is there positive energy they need that they're not connected to? Or does source just want to give them more information? So these charts help us figure out what that information is. And then the frequencies, the third step is activate. So it's activating high vibrational frequencies. And what's really neat is when we're in the auto healing state, all we need to do is just do a directive to direct the energies. So it's just going to take literally less than a minute for me to do this activation for everyone.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're all going to, in whichever way, you don't necessarily have to, for those listening, they're like, I'm not sure I'm good at STOIM yet. Don't worry about it. So I'll be in that place and I'm going to do what's called a topocan healing directive. So the directive basically tells those higher frequency energies to start specifically healing certain things for you, for me, for Dr. Christine, everyone who's listening in, personalized to you. And of course, there's much more detailed ways of us figuring out what it is to heal, but whatever is allowed to heal right now in this space can. And so our intention is for people to be able to connect to the 0 point field, their inner wisdom, even deeper and greater than ever before. Okay, so here we go. So I'm currently feeling energy in my body, and you can do the same. I now command that anything that's preventing each of us from connecting and aligning to our inner source wisdom be healed and resolved with ease, speed, and grace in the highest and best way, all directions of time and all timelines where we exist, we're allowed. Thank you. Okay, so that's just going to take a few seconds to settle in. You can open your eyes if you had your eyes closed, and that is it. So because there's, we don't have a lot of people on this because we're, this is recorded. We don't get to have feedback from a lot of people, but oftentimes we'll hear people feel a shift. So in case you did, Dr. Christine, you can certainly share.
Yeah, no, I just, that, when you're going through these exercises, a lot of where my mind goes is like, wow, this is, of course, your journey, it's complex and it's gotten here, but it's very simple, right? And it's like, it's so accessible. It's always there, I guess, is what I just, that was the awareness I came up with. It's just up to us to tune in and to ask and be open to receiving. But no, I just kind of like, oh, it's just there, kind of, that was kind of my experience, with that. But no, it's that was really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really fun. The funny thing is even though it's so simple, it doesn't have to be hard. And that's one of the messages I just really wanted to share today, Dr. Christine, is that even if you go into the auto healing state and have a specific intention, for example, say somebody has a knee pain, they go into auto healing state and just pay attention to the knee. Sometimes if you don't need to know more details, if you don't need to, figure it out from all the, the 3 charts that we have here in topocan healing, it'll just heal itself. And then you're done and then you can move on. So that's the really fun thing about this all.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your time and all your gifts and your knowledge. And I want to have people know where they can find more about your work and your book and all of that. What's the best site, Karen, for people to find out more about you?
Well, I believe we're going to post the link below the video, and it's kind of long, so we'll just post it below the video. It's a pretty link that connects with the Shift Network. They can get $1,000 of free gifts related to buying a copy of my book, whether it be through a physical copy of my book or the ebook. Sensitivity is Your Superpower here, and the gifts include meditations and healing MP3s, MP4s. So that's really, really cool. And so we'll just connect with that link near the video.
Perfect. Well, no, I'm so glad you're able to share that with this community. And again, thank you so much for your time. It's always a joy to see you.
My pleasure, Dr. Christine. Same here. Thank you so much for having me.